Señoras, señores y amigos, bienvenidos a INSERCO. Bienvenidos al maravilloso mundo del diseño, decoración y color.
A proudly welcome from our side, for those who know INSERCO and for those who don't know yet. Be part of our first online live event. We appreciate your interest. INSERCO is innovation, service and communication. Based in Germany, active worldwide. We know technology and design, how to convert an industrial product to emotional surfaces. You have plans, we have solutions.
Then don't let us wait. Please come in.
Hola y muchas gracias por la introducción. Para mí es un placer poder ser parte de este evento digital. As we speak, we are broadcasting today's event to 4 different continents all around the globe. America, Europe, Asia, and Oceania is with us here. Within the next hour, we have the opportunity to talk about latest color and material trends with a perspective on future trends. INSERCO has invited 2 very inspiring experts to share their knowledge and insights with some fun and excitement. What to expect? Well, we will have fake oranges, talk about emotions, and show you how digitalization is influencing the expectations of your customers. So let's start and welcome with me Rolf Wader. He's an award-winning designer specialized in object design. Hello, nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, liebe Marie.
Dear Marie, thank you very much for the kind words of introduction, and I'm happy to be here today, and it makes me a little embarrassed to hear talk about the design awards, but of course we are proud of them because these are design awards that we've won for our customers and that have made our customers very successful. I'm a designer and I've been a designer for many years. I've been advising the furniture industry on an international scale, and we keep track of the value changes of customers, be it in respect of furniture, travel, or hotels, hotel entertainment, and so forth. And from these changes in the value expectations, we derive whether surfaces should be rather matte or glossy in the future, or whether there are technological innovations like anti-fingerprinting. So where the technology helps us to develop new products for industry, and industry would then be able to invest on that basis in order to perform successfully in the future.
What are the current topics you're working on right now?
Well, this is a very wide field indeed. There are totally different projects going on, but what all those projects have in common at the moment is that we actually try to develop new materials. New materials are, of course, something where we are all a little bit concerned, because these are new investments, these are costs, this involves risk as to whether they're going to work, and in terms of what effort we have to make. But we know that it's going to be more and more difficult on a global basis to produce certain things. In some countries, we have an intense discussion about PVC, so we are looking for alternatives to PVC. Then there is the formaldehyde discussion. We want to have better indoor air, be it in the offices, be it in our environment at home. So we also think about whether we should work with different resins in the future, or whether we can make do without resins altogether. So paper has a positive connotation at first, but if you take a closer look, you find that there is lots of chemicals involved, lots of water is involved when it comes to paper. So if we take a critical look of the eco-balance, we find that it makes sense to actually think about whether we will have to work or should work with so much paper in the future. These are projects, and in the next hour or so, I will have an opportunity to come back to some of these points. So it's all about satisfying the needs of customers. We actually try to develop nice spaces, surfaces, materials for them. And it's also about finding out how in the future we can use our machinery, our investments that are in place in a more resource-conserving manner so that the products can be recycled better, because this is something that most of the projects have in common today. Beyond the pure beauty of decor, we also have to meet the challenges for the midterm future in order to make the products more environmentally compatible.
There is an increased demand from a consumer perspective for sustainability.
Ja, auf jeden Fall.
Yes, by all means. Sustainability is a very important topic. We have to be a little careful because, in particular in Europe, we find a lot of greenwashing. That is to say, everybody tries to create a positive image for himself, but the products will have to be judged by the fact that they are truly more sustainable and environmentally compatible. This is no longer going to be the advertising message, because the future consumers, the young generation now growing up, will take this for granted, that we conserve resources and that we protect our environment. On the other hand, we have the challenge of the global urbanization. 8 billion people, of course, want to be supplied, and they also want to be able to lead a healthy and beautiful life.
So let's introduce to you Leonhard Overrascher. You are scientist, you're a designer, and you're also a leading expert in the field of color and light, and also material and surfaces. Why is color so important in surface design?
Yes, hello. Thank you, Maria, for introducing me. Hello, everybody out there. Now, let's come straight to the point you asked me. Look, you're dressed in this beautiful green dress. Then we have flowers around. We have fruits, colors everywhere, everywhere. So color is a fundamental dimension of our perception. We are surrounded by colors always and everywhere. Everything is colorful. The colorless world does not exist unless you are colorblind or in total darkness, okay? So colors are, so to speak, the raw material of our visual perception, because the eye does not see shapes as such, but only patches of color and light, and then our brain constructs an image of our surrounding. So color is generated in the brain. So color is a psychological phenomenon, and this is the reason why always also surface design always has something to do with psychology. But color is also emotion, okay? Emotion. So colors excite us. They affect us. They attract us or they repel us. So we are always influenced by colors, and we can't escape this influence. And as you probably know, that purchasing decisions to a large extent are subconscious. And color has a direct influence on our subconsciousness. Now, this is why color is so important in design and marketing.
Can you tell us more about the functions of color design?
Okay, yes. So, basically, good design always fulfills two categories of needs: practical needs and emotional sensual needs. Now, a chair, for example, is meant for sitting, okay? So whether the chair is red, green, yellow, blue doesn't matter for the function of sitting. But color plays a major role on how the chair affects us emotionally. So a yellow chair will affect us quite differently than a blue one. Let's take, for example, the famous chair of Gary Rietveld. So everyone with a certain cultural education knows this chair. This chair is so unique because of the combination of color and form. So it creates a unique image, a unique gestalt, in the sense of gestalt psychology. But this chair is also good to sit on. So it fulfills both practical function and emotional function. But what makes this chair so exciting is its colors. So good design always skillfully combines practical, rational functions and communicative, emotional functions.
How can we now apply all these findings to the design of surfaces? So, you know, the colors are very important. What link is there to the design of surfaces?
Yeah, right. When you look at decorative surfaces, there are two-dimensional products.
Yes.
So they are given shape later on by the architect and the furniture designer. But we have no control over this. Therefore, the design and marketing of decorative surfaces is not so much about the practical functions, but about the emotional effect we can achieve by means of color, texture, and surface structure. So, how can we touch the consumer emotionally? How can we make a decor more appealing? How do we have to present and advertise decors? And what story can we tell? So these are important questions we have to ask over and over again.
So these storytelling is always for consumers. Rolf, what do consumers expect from the market nowadays?
Das ist ein ganz schwieriges.
This is a very tricky topic. What do the consumers expect nowadays from the manufacturers in terms of products and materials? Because here we are seeing a transformation, a change at the moment. Expectations are changing because the target groups are changing. And the target groups are changing because young people are growing up and they develop and grow into the role of those interested in furniture, the buyers of furniture, and they grow into the role who are speaking their mind in terms of how they would like to live. And what we are seeing at the moment is that we as trend researchers talk about the generation Z. And this generation Z is a totally different generation, different from my generation, different from many other generations, because the generation Z is the first generation that has completely grown up with the digital setting, with the digital options and opportunities. They live with their touch screens, with their mobile phones, and this has led to totally different expectations among them in terms of communication, product promises, and the opportunities of getting something, of placing an order and having it delivered right away, overnight. The generation Z was born from 1995 about, so they are 25 years old, and this year they account for 40% of the population of the consumers that belong to this generation. 40% of our consumers of products today have grown up in a purely digital setting. And the generation before, we call it the millennials, were born between 1985 and 1995, roundabout, so they are 10 years older, and they are not used to the digital technology from the beginning onwards, but as school children they have grown up with this equipment in the digital world. That is to say, today 65% of consumers live a totally and purely digital life. What is the trend? What are the expectations? Well, this target group will demand totally different products from us. I'm not talking about decors, colors, about functions here, but it's about the fact that they've learned to sort of get a totally individualized and individual product for themselves. When they stream music, videos, services, apps, and so forth, all of this is highly individualized, and they have gotten used to it, right down to software programs where, for instance, the music can be influenced. We are talking about co-creation here. The consumer can actually change the product himself afterwards. Individualization, co-creation, and of course, pressing the button. I've placed the order for something and I expect it to be delivered tomorrow. That is delivery on demand. And again, the expectations of consumers are changing right now in that individualization, co-creation, and the opportunity of getting something on demand in the short run, that these are the new products. These are the products that will determine the success of a new design, just as well as the color, the texture, the price, and so forth. So we will see totally new criteria on top.
I can tell from my perspective as a millennial, for me it's really hard to wait for my new sofa. 16 weeks, I'm not a patient person at all. So what you tell, I can totally agree.
Ja, deshalb. Und,
Exactly, yes. That's why it's so important to actually deal with this and to respond to this. If we were to produce all of this for stocks, we might be able to deliver this overnight. But then the question of individualization comes up. People would like to have it specifically individualized for themselves, but we will come to that later, because we also have new production capabilities coming up with digitalization, and there are already beginnings of making this possible also when it comes to furniture today.
So let's come back to the world of colors. In order to see, you need the eye. So how does the eye work? You as a scientist can tell us certainly more.
Yes, of course. Now, the eye can only perceive surfaces, you know, so we don't have X-ray vision. We cannot look directly into the things around us. Color is, so to speak, the optical interface between us and our environment. Or, as I like to say, color is the skin of things. So let's take this orange, for example, or clementine, isn't it? Yeah, it's a clementine. All we can perceive is the outer shell, but we cannot look inside. So, is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it dry, juicy?
Well, in my experience, it's juicy.
Oh, yeah, so,
but
you don't know,
Yeah.
know, so we have to peel it and we have to try it. That's the only way to find out. Okay, let's try. And you can see color actually is the skin of things, at least in a figurative sense, isn't it? Yeah, Maria, why not trying another one?
Okay.
Really sweet. Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
What is it?
Yeah, it's not a true clementine.
Oh, you're unlucky.
Yeah,
What
it's
happened?
plastic. I don't know. It looks like a clementine, but
No,
it
it's
isn't.
a fake.
Yeah.
It's a dummy. So what happened? Our eye has misled us, so we have been deceived. It's all fake here. You see, so if we wouldn't have touched this apparent orange, we'd still not know whether it's a fake or a dummy. And this is actually the same which happens with the decor. But here we are happy that our eyes are deceived and that we are misled.
Yeah, that's true.
So, because then actually it means it's a good print. It's a good print.
Yeah.
So it's just an illusion. It's all about surfaces. So we can say, thanks God we don't have X-ray vision, because otherwise the whole market with artificial surfaces won't work, you know? Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
Looks great.
Yeah. You want to tell us that surface design is all about deceiving the eye.
Yes, exactly. It's about deceiving the eye. So we have seen that we cannot visually distinguish this decor from a real wood. So what we do, we take a piece of paper, we print a few spots of color on it, and then whoops, our brain constructs the impression of a real wooden surface. So isn't it fascinating?
It's super fascinating.
Yeah. So the reproduction and printing of wood surfaces is in fact entirely based on imitation. Yes, on imitation. And architects and designers often criticize the imitation of natural materials, but imitation is actually quite common. Nature has been using imitation and deception in various forms ever since. For example, there are animals that imitate the appearance of plants, and then there are plants that imitate the appearance of animals. Or there are animals that imitate the appearance of other animals. And there are animals and plants that take on the appearance of the environment.
Yeah.
So there are quite different strategies of imitation in nature. And depending on who and what is being copied, we refer to this as mimicry, mimesis, or camouflage. Now, the purpose of all these strategies is always the same. It's to gain advantage in survival. And also we humans use these strategies. If you just think of camouflage uniforms in the military. But also the imitation of natural materials has a long tradition. Stucco marble, for example, the imitation of real marble, dates back to Roman times. And later, during the Baroque period, starting from the 17th century on, churches and palaces were often decorated with stucco marble as it was a cost-effective alternative to real marble. And I'm sure you know, when you go to a church, you have seen and you touched in the column, you see, the imitation is so perfect that you can't distinguish it unless you touch it. And then you feel, oh, it's warmer than a real marble. Now, that's the same with a high-quality wood decor. We have to touch the surface first to distinguish whether it's real or imitation or a print. Yeah. So the sense of touch is, so to speak, the sense of truth. You can fool the eye, but you cannot deceive the sense of touch, because what we feel when we touch is what we trust. But actually, with the development of digital printing, with haptic inks and fully synchronized pores, we can no longer even trust the sense of touch. So something is happening, something new for us.
Yeah.
So isn't it impressive what technology is making possible today?
Complete new possibilities for the future.
Exactly.
So we can no longer trust our...
Not even the sense of touch. And I think, Rolf, that you probably can tell us much more about haptic inks and digital printing of surface textures.
No, I will do. Ich habe Muster mitgebracht.
I brought some samples actually, and I would like to show you something that can even demonstrate this much better. The fact that we are not able really to distinguish very well today already between what we see and feel, and that we have technologies available today that make it fairly easy for us, provided we've invested in the technology, to produce this. I call it 2.5D printing, not only myself, but it may not be popular at the moment. 2.5D, we are all familiar with three-dimensional 3D printing, the three-dimensional printing of objects. And I have a surface, I just have to print a relief, and then we talk about 2.5D printing. Because it's not as high, of course, because we only have a few microns in terms of height, in terms of roughness that we have to print out, and because it's a term to express that it's not about three-dimensional printing, it's about printing a surface. in terms or as a relief. The technology is fairly straightforward, can be easily explained. We scan an object and we scan it with the relief. That is to say, we have inclined incident light and we obtain a 3D image of the surface, and or we construct the surface. We have a digital data record with a three-dimensional profile. And we then move on to a digital printer, a specific printer, which does not only have the 4 inks as print heads, there are another 4 print heads, and these more 4 print heads use haptic ink, a drop that will solidify later because there is a lot of filler in the ink, and by using it 4 times in the same spot, this haptic ink, we can set up and build up a haptic relief. This was invented in another area. We are all familiar with blister packs for medication with Braille printed on it, and it was developed on that basis. In many languages, Braille was printed on these blister packs, and this is the technology we are using today in order to print surfaces. We print the texture, and then the decor is printed on top. And all of this is done in a single pass printing operation. I brought along some samples that I would like to show you. The first sample is this kind of ceramic panel or tile. We see the orange joints, which are a little bit deeper, and the individual tiles, the small tiles in their individual shapes, are separated by different levels of dullness. These are 20 to 30 microns in terms of thickness that we actually produce or are able to see here because of the dullness and the glossy surfaces. This was produced in a single pass process in a digital manner, and in the future we will definitely see many more developments along these lines. We can scan objects spontaneously to reproduce them, and this is a part of a painting. We can still see the brush stroke here, so this is definitely something that we will have to think about in the future when we are in the Louvre Museum, whether it's the genuine, the true Mona Lisa, or a digital printout, or maybe we will soon have all our genuine Mona Lisa at home because we cannot distinguish it anymore from the original. But please see for yourself.
It really looks and especially feels like a real painting.
Yeah, I think it's really amazing, isn't it? So it's an authentic look, and it's perfectly coordinated with the haptic experience. Now, Maria, actually, did you know that our sense of touch is much more sensitive than our eye?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, so our fingertips are so sensitive that we can even feel the finest structures. And experiments have shown that we can even feel elevations that are just 1,000 of a millimeter. So it's incredible. So that's many times smaller than what the eye can see. In order to see the structure, it must be 80 to 100 times larger. Now that actually means that our spatial resolution of our hand is much higher than the optical resolution of our eye.
So this means sometimes in order to see better, you should close your eyes, right?
Probably, yeah. So we could talk a lot about the sense of touch, but unfortunately our time is limited.
So let's talk now a little bit about marketing. There's a lot of competition in the market. So Rolf, what can be unique selling points for production companies?
The uniqueness is wherever I do something that my competitors cannot do. This means I have a more recent development, I'm ahead of the market, I bear the risk, but I can show something that others do not have. Or I invest more, that is to say, my product looks even more natural, more beautiful, and is even closer to the trend. An example is the synchronous pour, for example. However, the producer has to invest a lot of money here. Camera systems are needed. The press plate has to press exactly where the printer actually placed the pour before. Special papers are needed that actually enable him to do so later, because specific resins are also needed. So it's very complicated, requires a lot of effort, and we know from our market surveys that only 10% of all manufacturers are able to produce a synchronous pour. Something else would be particularly deep structures, then people would have to work with 2 different sheets of paper in order to be able to press the right depth into the material. Doing something that others do not do, being ahead of the curve, and this is something that I brought along here because this is totally new, really, and this would be a very good approach to achieving a unique selling point. Today, it's possible to produce even more natural wooden surfaces by press plates without additional effort required. Of course, the manufacturer of the press plate has to put in more effort, but the processor can use the normal equipment, the normal short cycle press, in order to create the appeal of a real pour. So one thing is the embossed in register, EIR, we are familiar with in the industry, and what is new is the AIR, all over in register. That is to say, for instance here, we have a sample I'm going to show you in a minute from the company Hook, who developed this. They developed the print decor, but the pour pattern is left blank in the printout. It has not been printed, and the pour pattern can be clearly seen and is clearly contained in the press plate. And the result will always look as if there is total congruency, even if the press plate and the pour pattern are not exactly in sync. So this is the example. We don't see the detail here, but we see a very pronounced pour pattern, and the pour pattern comes exclusively from the press plate. It has not been printed. And this enables everybody interested in this technology and deciding in favor of it without any major additional financial outlay, cameras, special papers, for instance, to produce with the standard equipment such a normal surface. From a marketing perspective, this is, of course, a step forward in terms of an innovation, and this is a differentiation. This stands out from what's available in the market at the moment, but it's going to be a little more expensive, but it doesn't require major new investments. And this new system, AIR, all over in register, is something that I brought along today as an innovation, and in the future we will have to deal with this even more.
So let's go again from surfaces to color. Leo, can you tell us a little bit more about the function of color in design in general?
Yes, yeah. So in product design, color fulfills different functions. So these are indicative, symbolic, and aesthetic. And all 3 functions contribute to the communicative message of a product. Now let's take the aesthetic function of color. Aesthetic function has to do with color combination, with color harmony, color contrast, and with the composition and the spatial distribution of colors. And what is quite interesting is that regardless of culture and education, that probably everyone is able to judge whether a color combination is good or bad. And this has nothing to do with personal taste, but with universal laws of visual perception.
Okay, so it's like a scientific law. It's not about my personal taste. Everyone will judge the same.
Exactly, yes. It doesn't matter that you have your personal taste, but the task is just to judge whether it's good or bad, not whether you like it or not. That's a different question. Now, Unfortunately, we cannot show these experiments I would like to show you with different color combinations. But another thing is important. When you compose colors in general, or in particular decorative samples in a sample overview, so you have to know that colors always influence each other. So we never see a color sample isolated, but always in the context with other colors.
Okay.
Yeah. And the most interesting fact is that one and the same color always looks different depending on the background it's viewed on and the colors it's surrounded by.
Okay.
That means we never see a color as it actually is, because our eye is not a spectrophotometer, but a dynamic system which constantly adapts to the changing viewing conditions, different light levels and so on. So this has many advantages in everyday life, but on the other hand, it makes it quite difficult to judge a color objectively. And just let me give you a short demonstration.
Can you show us?
Yeah, I think we can have the time to do that. So just look here. What do you see? These two grays, are they the same or different?
No, for me, this one looks darker and this lighter.
Exactly. So we see two different colors. That's
Yes.
what we see, yes? So that's our reality. But the physical reality is it's all the same. It's the same.
Yeah, this is
So,
this is great, but also means something for color presentation too.
of course, yeah, that means that actually designers and architects, for them it's absolutely necessary to understand how colors influence each other. But also for you, it's good to know more about it, because this will help you to present your products better on, for example, overview of decorative samples and so on. And of course, we are happy to help you in future if you have questions or if you need any assistance.
You mentioned at the beginning that color also fulfills a symbolic character. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, of course. So the other function is the symbolic function or symbolic effect of color. So the symbolic function does not refer to real properties of a color, such as light, dark, high or low saturation, redness, greenness, blueness, and so on, but to associations and ideas we combine or connect with a certain color. So, for example, we describe certain colors as warm and others as cold. And most of the people would describe red, orange, yellow as warm, and blue and turquoise, but also white as cold. But is red really a warm color and blue really a cold color? You know? So what do you think? Is red really warmer than blue?
Well, I don't know. I guess not.
Yeah, let's try it,
Okay.
you see? Because there are a lot of things where people say, okay, you feel warmer in a red room, in a blue room you feel colder.
That's true.
But let's see. What we can do is, we have this little device here. You all know it.
So we'll prove it.
Yeah, the COVID device to measure temperature.
Yeah.
And let's measure these two surfaces.
Yeah.
A red one and a blue one. Is there
Okay.
any difference? Okay. What do you read here? 24.
24.2.
Okay, red one. And here the blue one.
Also
It's the
24.
same. 24. 2, so it's the same.
Yeah, so no fever.
No
Yeah.
fever, exactly. So that means it's both the same. But why then we describe red as warm and blue as cold? You know, so warm and cold are not properties of the color itself, but states and occurrences that we have experienced in connection with these colors. So for example, we often experience red with fire, glow, dryness, heat, but also with physical warmth, you know, with fever, sexual arousal, and also with anger. And blue, on the other hand, we often experience with water, ice, snow, with coldness, with freezing, lifelessness, and death, okay?
So it's all about association.
Exactly, yeah. So the fact that we therefore refer to red as warm and blue as cold has nothing to do with the actual temperature of these colors or colored surfaces, but the properties and the states we associate with these colors, you know? So in this way, red then becomes a symbol for warm, and blue becomes a symbol for cold. But of course, one and the same color can also take on many different symbolic meanings, and new meanings are constantly added through new conventions, but also informal social processes.
So if colors can acquire new symbolic meanings, do you have an example for that?
Yeah, for example, fashion and trends, okay? So through fashion and trends, a color can acquire a new meaning. When red, for example, is in trend, it becomes a temporary symbol for modernity. Now, trend colors are so interesting because they are strong symbols per definition. That means trend colors are symbols to distinguish yourself and at the same time also to demonstrate belonging, you know.
Okay.
So trend colors are an expression that you're up to date, that you're in, that you're part of the fashion and of the current zeitgeist.
So it can be also sort of a lifestyle. And if you see older pictures from that time, you know, oh, must be 80s or 90s.
Exactly,
or
yes,
No.
yes. So
Okay.
they are a symbol, a temporary symbol for a certain area.
I understand. Okay, so colors have a symbolic meaning. Do materials also have a symbolic meaning?
Ja,
Yes,
Materialien.
indeed, materials also have a symbolic effect. Good example may be the metal surfaces that we come across today. We have metal surfaces by laminating thin metallic foils onto surfaces, by printing metal surfaces right down to metals. But behind all of this, there are strong symbols. Metal stands for professionalism, at least when it comes to interior furniture. Rolf Heide developed the professional kitchen, the kitchen of the chefs for the consumers, with metal surfaces, brushed stainless steel. We're all familiar with this. This is the professional kitchen. This is the symbol of professionalism. Then there are other examples. We know the patina surfaces, the rust surfaces, the combination with bricks or concrete. This is the realm of punk rock, steampunk really. This is the used look. This is what actually occupied our minds very much in recent years. And what's very important here for metal surfaces and interior furniture is the symbol of luxury. This is where brass comes into play. It looks like gold, and then copper comes up. Copper is warm, and this is reminiscent of being handmade, the precious objects. These are strong symbols, and those who want to have a professional look will go for stainless steel, and those who would like to have exclusivity and luxury can draw on a wide range of warm metal colors that actually symbolize all this. Something that I brought along is totally new today. I cannot actually give you a symbol for it, but we have this trend towards matte surfaces. We talk about metal surfaces today, and the metals have symbols in terms of gloss, value, professionalism, and on the other hand we see the painted surfaces, the matte surfaces with anti-fingerprinting properties that can be finely pigmented. So something is converging here, not necessarily from opposite directions, but from different areas. Things are converging to create something hybrid. And this hybrid means that we have metal surfaces where we see that there is gloss underneath, but they are matte and finely pigmented. So we have relatively warm colors. We have this matte or dull effect. We have a velvety touch, and here metal goes into an area that we haven't occupied before. But maybe this is the symbol of modernity. A metal surface can be up-to-date, will be up-to-date and very modern. And with this we will reach out to architects that all of a sudden get a surface appeal that they've never seen before, and they feel like it, like working with it in their creative work. But take a closer look, please. These are just samples from the lab. They are handmade, but they will be industrially produced very shortly. With this, as I said, we are reaching out to architects, but because they keep asking us indirectly, what can I demonstrate my creativity? Because I have to present something new to my customers in terms of an innovation, and this is an innovation. Leo, what do you think about it?
So I'm just switching to German. Okay. No, I think it's really beautiful, really impressive. Impressionante, no?
Yeah, new possibilities for interior designers. So really nice. Mm-hmm. So the whole world is also talking about color forecast, color trends every year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that trend forecasts are quite useful. They're helpful, they give us an orientation. But you can feel about the topic of trends and trend forecasts however you want. One thing is certain. Color and style preferences change over time. For example, if we look at the history of art and culture, we can see how one style area was replaced by another one. Mm-hmm. And change is a natural process, and it is a natural human desire. Because at some point, everyone gets fed up and wants to experience something new. And
That's
this
true.
means that also colors necessarily have to change.
Mm-hmm. But how do they change though?
As far as I can tell, I have carried out several studies and examined how collective color preferences have changed over time. I and other authors observed that colors repeated themselves cyclically. So here we can see one of my analyses of furniture interior colors in Germany over a period of 25 years. And you can see clearly how one color phase changes into the next. When we look up here, we have the bright colors, and the bright colors of a certain time darken. Then after these darkened colors, a brown phase comes. Then this brown phase turn into pastel colors, and then achromatic colors come. So black, white, and gray shades dominate, and so on. But at some point, the bright colors come back. And also today we can observe a similar color sequence, because after a relatively long period of brown tones, and we still can see them, the pastel colors are becoming or have become more important again. But the difference is that today many things move faster, they are more short-lived, and also color clusters and color phases, they overlap more frequently.
So trend colors repeat itself over and over again.
Yes, and there's another very logical reason why they have to repeat. Because we cannot invent new colors. For us humans, the numbers of colors we can perceive is limited. Everything is there. Yes? So the visible color space, so to say, is a closed space. And when we take the color circle, for example, we can move to the right and the left, but at one point we always will come back to the starting point. It's a closed space, and the same is with the color triangle. If we move along the light-dark axis, we can move towards white or black. And for example, if we have reached the ultimate white, we can only turn back and move to the other directions. So we cannot invent new colors. We can only invent new materials and pigments. For example, a new black pigment consisting of nanotubes. I'm sure you heard about it. It's the blackest black in the world. But it's not a new color. It's a new pigment.
It doesn't reflect light. So what other innovations do we have then? What other options do we have to make innovations?
Yes, we do have options, but color innovation in surface design is more about developing new technologies to realize new surface appearances. For example, by combining color with other optical properties, such as gloss, translucency, transparency, metallic effects, pearlescence, and so on. And Rolf has shown us some great examples, you know, these hybrids between metallicness and color. And apart from that, furniture and interior colors do not always have to be trend symbols, but also can represent other values and symbolic meanings. Also, Rolf has shown us some great examples. So take the consumer group that wants to demonstrate luxury through its furnishing style. They will be hardly influenced by current color trends unless these colors symbolize luxury, which is at the moment the case. So furniture and interior colors, apart from being trendy, they fulfill various needs and have many different symbolic meanings.
What do you recommend then?
Yeah, I would say certainly it's not a disadvantage to have trend colors in a collection, or I would say it's a must. You must have trend colors in the collection. But much more important is that you have a balanced color palette that fulfills the needs of different consumer groups, of different style preferences, and of different practical applications.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rolf, we just heard from Leonhard that it's not only important to focus on trends, but also to focus on the different needs of the consumer. What do we know actually about the needs of the consumer?
Das ist eine sehr spannende Frage.
This is a very tricky and exciting question because this is very diverse as consumers are. And the answer necessarily is also very diverse, of course. It also depends on what we can provide the consumers with. How do we attract them? What are our new products and incentives? As we've just heard, we've been talking about the Generation Z, and we know that they want to see individualization. We are talking about trends, and we are gearing up for that. We have to have everything in our collections. On the other hand, we hear about individualization, fast delivery, but these are things that are mutually exclusive. We know that it's very difficult to get prepared for that because we don't know what influence will determine consumers tomorrow and what they will ask us to provide. I come back to the Generation Z, the needs that develop very quickly and are in demand very quickly, and we only have limited capabilities of having things on stock in order to sell them tomorrow. So these consumers will have to be taken very seriously with the new expectations, and at the same time we will then also have to prepare for a situation where we have to produce in totally different ways in the future. This gets us into areas that are covered by the buzzword disruptive. Something is destroyed here, something is disintegrating to create something new. We all have our short cycle presses, our paper stocks, our products, and don't want to hear about things developing here, new things that will then quickly come to an end. But we have to strike a balance in the middle, I think. The new technology that is being established at the moment is that in the future we may only have blank plates, no decor plates, no textured plates, and the plate can also be an acrylic plate or a polypropylene recycling plate, or it can also be an aluminum plate. Depending on the function that is needed, we will in our stocks have blank white plates without any decor whatsoever. But as soon as the customer places an order saying, I would like to have this piece of furniture, it should look like this, at that very moment we have in-house what the customer has ordered, and we will print digitally what the customer wants onto the plate. So we will have a development here where in the future we have standard plates. We will no longer have large stocks of decors and surfaces, and as soon as the customer knows what he or she would like to have, even if it's a photograph that he or she would like to have on the front of a piece of furniture, or an architect may have the idea of having 10 specific doors in a restaurant, or we want to furnish a cruise liner, and the cruise liner has an individual design at every level. As soon as the designer, the architect, knows what he wants, he will give us the go-ahead, and at that point in time we will produce the surface, not before. This is something where we would say there's something coming up for us. This is totally new, totally different. This will not account for 100% of the market immediately, but it will be an option, a possibility of handling these changes in expectations of the target groups, and to produce and deliver something.
But these are also endless possibilities and leads to a lot of options and choices to make, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Und ja, auf der einen Seite.
On the one hand, we have a whole host of possibilities and options, and on the other hand, we know that we as humans look for orientation, and the companies that provide this service will have to have a catalog of options probably, or like Leo and myself, we will provide advice as specialists, because we know this from other areas. I can place an order for my muesli on the internet and prepare it myself, but the manufacturer knows that 90% of the people always go for the same muesli. Or let's take t-shirts. I can actually design my own t-shirt, but then all of a sudden there is a note that these are the 10 best-selling t-shirts, and every second person will take this as guidance. And this will be the same in our area. But this will also mean that the design expertise that rests with the decor printers today and with the big plate coaters, that this will go somewhere else, this design expertise. In Europe, we have big joiner workshops with their own design departments, and surface finishes are being created there. We have furniture manufacturers saying, I don't have to buy the standard decors, I have my own decors. So the design expertise where surface finishes are being developed and produced is moving closer to the consumer and is moving closer to the manufacturer and processor. In Europe, we already have associations being established in order to pool these many technologies that are required, and also in order to provide the right training as to how a surface finish can be designed, because this is the topic for the future. I can actually design my own surface finish and can produce it.
This definitely sounds super exciting. I'm looking forward to. And if you want to gain more knowledge about color advice for you and your customers, please don't hesitate to contact INSERCO. Thank you, Leonhard, for your valuable insights today. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. So I say goodbye to you. Thank you for being with us. Looking forward to a colorful future, because color is life, and we are longing for the life we didn't have for such a long time. So, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you also, Rolf. Thank you for being with us here. I hope you enjoyed it too.
Ich habe mich sehr gefreut, hier
It was
zu
a
sein.
great pleasure for me to be here. Thank you very much to all of you, and let's design the future together. There are many challenges out there, but there are also many great things that we want to do together and will do together in the future.
Many thanks for watching, and cheers to you.
Goodbye.
Cheers. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We appreciate your interest. Feel inspired. meeting us again at Lignac or any other place in the world.
Gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy en este evento y nos vemos en la próxima Ligna.